In today's show, we're looking back at all of the action across Tuesday in the NBA. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. At only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, it's only worth it if you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the Ultra Player of the Week coming up later in the episode. Let's talk games. Let's talk what went on in the NBA. We did get some injury updates today. We're going to cover a little bit of that in today's show as well. So let's crack in right now. And the first game we're going to take a squiz at is the first game of the day. It is the Chicago Bulls comfortably beating the Indiana Pacers 113-97. The Bulls went with a very, very small rotation. They basically played 7 men pretty much in the second half, especially 8 men in total. Lauri Markkanen played 22 minutes. He had 15 and 6 with 3 threes. That's pretty good. I don't expect him to be a 71% shooter, and I do think that you are much better off just having him as a waiver wire guy and not a must-roster 12-teamer. But Nikola Vucevic, he really is the story here.
It's big Vucevic.
Now, didn't take a single free throw, which is troubling as a big man, but 32, 17, and 5 with 4 triples and a block. He was huge, 37 usage. And Zach LaVine, who I did detail on my buy low show, didn't shoot particularly well, 33 from the field and 75 from the line, but he was a massive plus 16, had 19, 8, and 6, and blocked a shot. So good numbers there. And Patty Williams, he did his thing. He had 4 steals. He had 10 points, he hit a 3. Now, he's not reliable by any stretch, but occasionally he'll have these big games, especially defensively, which gives him a marginal appeal. He's more of a 14 to 16 team league player. 31 minutes is a lot for Kobe White, but remember, there was no Daniel Tice, no Garrett Temple in this one, and they're guys who will be in the rotation, so White unlikely to play 31 minutes a night. He had 13, 3, and 6, which is totally fine. But it's nothing where I want to rush to go and add him in a 12-teamer. Well, Satoransky was a little bit disappointing. He still played 34 minutes, so it wasn't that White was cutting into his time. 7, 6, and 3 is not all that good. While Thad Young, 28 minutes, 14, 7, and 5. And Thad does remain a 12-team league player. For the Pacers, there was no Brogdon, there was no Sabonis. Now, on the broadcast, they did say that Sabonis was probably a little bit behind Brogdon in terms of returning, so it looks like a couple more games for him probably out. And then Miles Turner sprained his ankle. Now, x-rays were negative, but Nate Bjorkgren said at the end of the game that it didn't look particularly good, which means you're going to think at least a minimum of a week here for Turner. So, is it time for the dart?
Problem with my Gogo-mobile. Gogo-mobile? No, not the dart. Not the dart.
No, it is the dart, in fact. Goga Badadze. He had 19 minutes here, 4, 3, and 6, 1 steal, 3 blocks. He copped a whack in the head and had to go to the locker room for a bit, but he returned. And there's a chance for him to put up maybe for 2 games, maybe for 3 games, maybe for a week. Who knows? There's a chance for him to put up some pretty solid numbers, and he's at least worth a stream for Wednesday. Deeper leagues, you're going to want to watch Jakar Sampson as well, who had 6 points in 12 minutes. Jeremy Lamb also played well, 15 points in 23 minutes, but most importantly, he had 6 steals and a block. Now, that has no chance of being able to continue, and I don't think there's any need to rush to add him in 12-team leagues. Levert, 26 and 5, that's pretty good. Also shot the ball well. And then TJ McConnell, only 25 minutes, but still did what he does. And that's 5 assists and 2 steals, and he remains a 12-team league player. Edmund Sumner started in place of Brogdon, had 15 points on only 8 shots. 2 steals is nice. He does have some appeal as a stream option if Brogdon is out. Well, I think we've got to give the Jack Armstrong treatment to Justin Holiday.
Get that garbage out of here!
Look, he's been good all year. The 111th ranked player, but 238th over the last 2 weeks. Karis LeVert's return has impacted him. Jeremy Lamb's getting some of these minutes. Sumner's now in the rotation. There's just not enough for me. He had 2 points, 1 rebound, and 1 block. That's all he had. And the recent production is not great, and I do think that streaming his roster spot is probably going to give you more value in 12-team leagues than just holding on based on what he was doing when he was playing 34 a night and a whole bunch of wings were out. And Oladipo was there, no Karis LeVert was there. So I'm not convinced. In fact, I'm pretty confident that he is a guy that you could consider as a droppable player at this point. Let's go on to the next game. We're looking at the Sixers who beat the Celtics. This 1-point line for the Sixers in this game never made sense. They won this pretty comfortably. In fact, it's probably a larger margin than the 10 points at the end would lead you to believe. 106-96 Philadelphia wins. Joel Embiid was back 35-6 with a steal. Sorry, with a 3 and a block. He just had 20 free throw attempts. Really put the Celtics in some real trouble. While Dan Green had 17 points, 5 triples and 2 steals, and Green remains a 12-team league guy. The Thick Hogsman, not particularly good here, Tobias Harris.
I think I am a TH.
T to the H!
Yeah, TH for life.
10 points on 36%, but contributed in other areas. 8 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block. And Ben Simmons, at least the field goal percentage jumped back up, 57%, 12, 4, and 6 with 3 steals. And we talked about him in the buy low show as well, how his assist numbers and his field goal percentage were way down without Embiid, and at least they pushed back up. We still need more improvement there. George Hill, it looks like he's going to be out for a little while longer, so that does prolong some of the minutes for Seth Curry, but I just don't, what he's doing is not valuable. 9 points, 32 minutes, 2 assists, 247th ranked player. He is rostered in far too many 12-team leagues. We're at a stage where your playoffs have already started, or you're pushing into the playoffs and holding on to a bloke who might be a top 150 player. I don't think that's good basketball. Not that this is basketball, but you know what I mean. The Painter Matisse Thybulle did his thing. He got the 1-1, while Dwight Howard had 9 boards in 14 minutes. And Shake Milton, he can go. 6 points in 19 minutes. For the Celtics, Tatum had 20 points on 41%. So a bit disappointing. While Jaylen Brown, only the 17 here.
JB, you've done it again.
At least he shot well, but his peripherals were absent. 3 rebounds, 0 assists, and 0 steals. He's, the 52nd ranked player over the last 2 weeks, and I think that's a fair indication of where he is. Now, the Rock DJ, Robbie Williams, don't panic. He played 14 minutes. He got in at 3 fouls in about 5 minutes and was in fouled out in those 14 minutes because that's what Embiid does occasionally, and that's just the shit that's going to happen. 4 and 9 with a block. That's still actually not bad fantasy value. You'd hope for a little bit more. Do not react to this. Do not drop him. Do not panic. It was an Embiid factor. That meant that we got the Luke Cornett to play 15 minutes. He had 6 points with 2 triples and 3 blocks. Don't read into that. Smart had 14 with 3 assists, and Kemba had 14, 3, and 6. Well, Romeo Langford, I know someone asked me about him. He's just not going to have any fantasy impact whatsoever. But maybe in days like tomorrow when Kemba's going to be out, maybe he gets extra minutes. But he is not the greatest stat accumulator, and the role is just not going to be large enough, I don't think, for him to really matter all that much for fantasy. Guys, it's time for the Michelob Ultra Player of the Week, and it is Drew Holiday. Not only is Drew the 3rd-ranked player in fantasy basketball over the last week, he signed a lucrative contract extension. The Bucks are going well. He's playing at a career-high level over this last week, and yeah, he's happy. He's enjoying himself, and if you have Drew Holiday on your fantasy team, why wouldn't you be enjoying yourself? Enjoyment isn't the end game. It is the whole game. And with Michelob Ultra, it is only worth it if you enjoy it with 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories. The joy in drinking a Michelob Ultra creates that success in your life. The happiness that you get from drinking this can be equivalent to the happiness of having Drew Holiday on your fantasy team. Are you happy because you win? Or do you win because you're happy? Or do you win because you got Drew Holiday? The Michelob Ultra Player of the Week is Drew Holiday. All right, let's move on now to the next game. Which game is this one we're looking at? We have got the Los Angeles Lakers comfortably beating the Toronto Raptors 110-101. A couple of early ejections. The table Montrezl Harrell lasted 2 minutes and he was ejected alongside the Jedi OG Anunoby.
But what about scarves?
OG.
Balenciaga
Stop,
ones.
OG. You better stop, OG.
So he's gone, Anunoby, after 10 minutes. And then in a weird move, straight after they got ejected, Dennis Smith checked himself out of the game and went to the locker room to tell Montrezl Harrell, thanks. It's a pretty weird thing to do. You can do it at halftime. You can do it later in the game. Pretty weird thing to do from Schroeder. Anyway, it did not deserve an ejection at all for either guy. Schroeder hard fouled Anunoby, and at the end, Anunoby sort of had Schroeder's leg, and you sort of tipped him up, and then Harrell came in to push. It was the biggest bullshit ejection you've ever seen. Give him techs if you want, but ejection is absolutely not necessary. So that was ludicrous. Schroeder had 12, 2, and 9 with 2 steals. Good numbers for him. Well, how about Marc Gasol?
Oh, hi, Mark.
13, 9, and 5 with 4 blocks. That is excellent. Gasol's been putting up some good numbers, but of course, Andre Drummond's going to come back next week, and they're going to start Andre Drummond over their best center in Marc Gasol. Gasol's still got it at times. He's still a really good defender. He's a good ball mover. He hasn't been particularly good at times this year, especially from a fantasy perspective, but the frustration's going to be here as they play the inferior player in Andre Drummond. Can't wait for that. Taylor Horton-Tucker, 26 minutes, 17, 4 and 6, but this game was a blowout, so we had minutes sort of all over the place. But it didn't stop Kyle Kuzma playing a lot because he was terrible. 8 points on 13 shots. That's 23%. He still had 2 blocks and 2 threes and remains a must-roster 12-team league player. Markieff Morris is all right. Morris has some 12-team streamability, 15 and 9 with 3 triples there. And Alex Caruso had 13 points in 28 minutes. He had 13, 5 and 4 with 2 steals. So some pretty good games. But this wasn't as close as the 9-point margin would have you believe at the end. Toronto. There was no Lowry or Van Vliet or Rocket Rodney Hood, and then they decided to start DeAndre Bembry alongside Gary Trent. And Bembry, again, I thought played well. 12, 5 and 3 with 5 steals. And his value in getting some assists and getting some steals at least has deep league value while these guys are out. And then Malachi Flynn started off poor, but 33 minutes off the bench, started the second half in place of Anunoby. 11 and 8 with 4 assists, 2 steals, a block and 2 triples. Another brilliantly well-rounded line from Flynn. Now, he's not going to be able to maintain 12-team league value this season. I just don't see it because Lowry, Van Vliet, and Hood are all going to come back. But he is a absolutely high dynasty target for me. I think he can be maybe his top 10 out of this class. And really, a couple of top 100 fantasy seasons, I think, can come from Flynn in the future, and we're seeing flashes of that now. Siakam had 27 points in 41 minutes. Absolutely no need for him to play 41 minutes in a game that was really out of control early. 2 steals and a block, while the wiki Chris Boucher played 33 minutes. And we know if he gets the minutes, the numbers will be there. Didn't block a shot, but 19 and 8 with a 3. 44% shooting is rough. You got to take the good with the bad with Boucher. I still think that he is a 12-team rosterable player, but there's going to be some shit ones coming up, I guarantee you. And then Gary Trent. This is what I warned you about Gary Trent, and this is why I was pretty lukewarm about adding him. 11 points, 27% shooting, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. He just doesn't do anything in those other areas, and when he has a shit night, it's a shit night. And this is the problem with Gary Trent. This is why his fantasy value isn't there. You want points and threes, sure, he's a streamable guy, but don't hold on to him like this. He's this Norman Powell replacement, going to be top 70 or anything like that as we move forward. Because he isn't that, and I do not believe that you believe that either, even though some people will tell you. And people really buy into short-term narratives. Oh, man, look at that. Look how well he's shooting. I saw that. I mentioned this again. I saw this on Reddit. Someone said, guys, his shooting's going to regress. And someone said, he's not shooting that much above average. It's only 8 percentage points. He's shooting 40%. 42% this season, and he's only at 50% now. But that is huge. Like, losing 8 percentage points is such a massive, massive dip in your value. You don't understand how big of an impact that is. And saying that, it's not that much, going from 50 to 42, it is an absolute shit ton. And then, because you're not going to go just from 50 down back and start shooting your average, you're going to probably dip under it. And that's exactly what we saw here for Trent. And that is always going to be the concern with someone like him who fails to contribute in many different areas. All right, let's go on to the next game now. We're going to look at the New Orleans Pelicans and the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks win this one easily, 123-107. No Ingram, no Alexander Walker, who's out for minimum 2 weeks. I think that's pretty optimistic. Again, high ankle sprain. A team that is absolutely flailing at the moment. Even they said Josh Hart, he'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. He'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks, and they'll say he's not coming back. So I think Alexander Walker is a drop. I think Josh Hart is a drop. There was no Kyra Lewis in this game. Let's start with the feel-good story. Isaiah Thomas played 25 minutes. That's great. He's claiming, I'm so good now. My hip, I don't even have to ice it. He had 10 points on 31% shooting. So before we get too excited about Isaiah Thomas, don't. Because again, he can say his hip's fine, and he is the master of self-promotion, which is excellent. I love that he does it. It's awesome. He is constantly out there, hey, give me a job. Look how good I am. And he constantly says it, but we've seen this for 4 years in the NBA. Like, he just isn't efficient anymore, and he doesn't have that pop once more. I worry a little bit that the Pelicans, without Alexander Walker and Hart, might prioritize Thomas over Kyra Lewis, which would be batshit insane, and I will roast the absolute shit out of Van Gundy if he does that, but it hasn't happened yet, so I'm going to keep it to myself. But just be warned, it might happen. Lonzo Ball was amazing. 12, 9, and 11, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 4 triples, outside of the plus-minus, which is horrendous. I mean, amazing from a fantasy perspective. While Zion, first game back, just a casual 34 points on 67% shooting, and was 9 of 10 from the line. His efficiency is otherworldly. He is the 7th-ranked player over the last 2 weeks, dropped 46 fantasy points, and I think Eric Bledsoe's a 12-team league guy. 14 points, 4 triples, 4 assists. Look, they're just going to have to force him minutes. Now, there was no Ingram, so James Johnson started at small forward, but the worry I had with Johnson is he hadn't played a single second without Ingram and Williamson, and then both those guys went out. He put up big games. And in this one, he played 26 minutes. He had 8 points. The 3 blocks are still nice, but where does he fit when Ingram returns? Does he even play in the rotation? So I think that while he's been added in a ton of leagues and it's fine as a short-term thing, I just cannot see it maintaining long-term. Jackson Hayes had 11 and 7 in 17 minutes before hurting his leg, so maybe deeper leagues want to look at Billy Hernan-Gomez. And I was impressed by Najee Marshall. I wasn't impressed by the fact that he shot 20%, but 8 and 9 in 28 minutes. They're giving him almost that Josh Hart role. It is hard to fully understand how it all works because no Ingram and no Lewis, who I do think, obviously, Ingram's going to be a starter and Lewis is going to be a key part of the rotation. But Najee Marshall, for deeper leagues, at least pay a little bit of attention to him. I think that's probably the right move at this point with him. For the Hawks, no Collins, no Hunter. It looks like John Collins is going to be out another week, would be my guess, and maybe another week for DeAndre Hunter. Trae Young had 30 points in 31 minutes with 12 assists, while Bogdanovic another 21 in 30 minutes. Bogdanovic playing really well, shooting well. There's going to be some ups and downs for sure, and he's going to shit the bed in one of these games coming up. But 30 fantasy points, he is a 12-team league guy. Capella had 12 and 12, and Pants had a bit of a reprieve with Hunter, Reddish, and Dunn all out and starting over Snell. The 17 points are nice. I still don't think that he's any more than a streamer. The Italian cock, they didn't have to push him too much, which on a back-to-back is fine. 14 points in 21 minutes. He is a 12-team league player, while Lou Williams is not. 12 points for Lou in 19 minutes, and Solomon Hill played 30 minutes for a reason. Not sure what they were. 5 points, 9 rebounds, 2 steals. Just deeper league stuff there. Another solid enough performance, I thought, from Onyeka Okongwu. 20 minutes, 7 points, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, 2 blocks. His value is going to be being a guy like a Nerlens Noel, who can rack up defensive stats, but also can be a pretty high efficiency finisher and a decent enough rebounder. And I think for him, yeah, he will be a starting center at some point in the NBA, whether it's on this team or not, I don't know. And I think he has multiple top 50 fantasy seasons in him. We just don't know when that's going to be. Guys, Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. Their flavors, amazing. We just saw the Built Bar March Madness or Built Bar Madness with the coconut chunk coming out on top, but so many great flavors right across the range. This is the best tasting protein bar ever. It tastes just like a candy bar, and those bars are covered in 100% chocolate, and they are soft and easy to chew. So it's great if you're looking to maintain or lose some weight. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and high fiber, and great if you're on a keto diet. The coconut almond bar, 18 grams of protein with just 180 calories and 5 grams of sugar and only 5 grams of net carbs. So if you go to BuiltBar.com, you can use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. The promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football and college basketball are done, but the NBA and the NHL are in full swing, and BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV. Real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds, and it's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. So head to the website, betonline.ag, or use your mobile device to sign up today using our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline are your online sportsbook experts. Let's go on to the next game. We've got the Miami Heat and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies on the road with a big win, 124-112, but it came at a cost. There was no Brandon Clark, DeAnthony Melton, or Justice Winslow, and then at the end of the game, Ja Morant hurt his back. Now, Morant is clearly not playing well. 10, 4, and 4 in 29 minutes. If he has to miss time, he is a drop, to be honest, because he's the 115th ranked player who's going to miss time. You can't hold it, I don't think. He is really struggling at the moment, and that's not ideal because we love watching Ja play, but nothing is good from him from a fantasy perspective at this point. Valanciunas is 20 and 10 in 27 minutes for Big JV.
Jonas Valanciunas.
And with Brandon Clark out, Kyle Anderson had 19, 8, and 6. And Dylan Brooks, he went bananas. He had 21 points in a quarter, ended with 28 with 5 triples and 2 steals. So really good numbers. We can't trust 63% shooting from Brooksy. But with all of these guard injuries now, he's going to have some solid value. John Conchar in deeper leagues, this dude fills it up. 5, 2, and 6 with 2 steals. He's going to have to get minutes, especially if Melton and Morant don't play tomorrow. While it was a stinker from Grayson Allen. I've been talking him up. Hey, go and at him. And then he has 8 points on 9 shots. Woof. But he is the 149th ranked player this season, 124th over the last 2 weeks. So I'll give him a little bit of leeway, especially with those injuries piling up. I think if Morant does miss, and if Melton's out, Tyus Jones is going to start. Now, we've seen the Tyus Jones starting experiment before. It's low value, but he gets assists. He doesn't turn it over. He can get some steals and hit some threes. There's very little upside. He's not a high scorer, but those assists can be valuable. So maybe you look at adding him in a 12-teamer. Well, Desmond Bane had 15 points with 3 threes, 2 steals, and a block in 22 minutes. I like Bane. I just don't see that clear path at this point to big minutes, but maybe with the Melton, Winslow, Clark, Morant injuries, maybe he can force it. I'm not 100% convinced about that at this point. If we go into the Miami Heat side of things, Bam Adebayo had a triple-double.
Big meaty man slapping me.
18, 10, and 10 with 3 steals. Butler had 28, 3, and 5. And guess what, guys? It was another subpar night from Victor Oladipo. He played 33 minutes, so that's more encouraging. 16 and 6 looks good on the surface, but 2 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 43 from the field, and 60 from the line. Just, again, hurting your efficiency. I'm not dropping him. It's getting close. Dragic had 9 points. He's not a 12-team league guy. While the Spur Dunk Robinson, nice 14 points with 4 triples, and Hero had 19 with 4 triples too. I think both of those guys can be 12-team league players, but without being must roster. While Ariza had 2 points in 26 minutes, and they did sign the Undertaker Dwayne Dedmon. No, I don't think Dedmon's a 10, a 12, a 14, or even a 16-team league player. He probably takes some minutes off Bjelica. Maybe he takes some from Ariza. Maybe he takes some from Achua, but Achua wasn't even in the rotation in this game. So I don't really see big things from the Undertaker Dwayne Dedmon, or nothing for you to get particularly excited about anyway. All right, so let's go on to the next game now. There's a weird glitch. Now, these box scores that I get for the video, if you're watching this on video, I get them off ESPN, but there's some glitch where no stats are showing up on ESPN, and it's happening for your fantasy leagues as well. That will be corrected, but they're not there at the moment. So it's going to look a little bit different. I grabbed it off the Basketball Monster box score page. It's going to look different for you, but hey, I'm still going to talk about what the game's results were. Pretty comfortable victory here for Denver in the end, 134-119. Jeremy Grant came out on fire for Detroit. 29 points in 30 minutes with 4 assists, shot the ball really well, 61%, 39 usage. Well, the depressed penis, we talked about him, or I talked about him in the pregame, saying he's had some real stinkers in a row, so he's bound to have this really big game, and he did. Now, it's very Gary Trent-esque. 25 points with 6 triples, 0 rebounds, 1 assist, 0 steals, and 0 blocks. And that's why I'm not particularly high on Bay as a fantasy prospect, because he is a little bit empty across the board, but that's solid enough. And he probably is a 12-team league guy, but I don't mind having him or using his spot for streaming. Dennis Smith was in the rotation, but playing 14 minutes only in a blowout when Hayes didn't play. Would make me think that he is not a large part of this rotation. Josh Jackson was pretty poor. Saban Lee was scoreless. He had 7 assists, but Hayes is going to be starting really soon for this team. Very hard to get a full read on this game. Look, Tyler Cook played 12 minutes. Hamadou Diallo had 8 points in 17 minutes. I do not believe that MC Hamadou Diallo is a 100% must-roster player. For points leagues, maybe. I just think that he is considerably overrated as a fantasy player, even as a real-life player. This was not good for him, but it wasn't good for many players. I just don't think that he's guaranteed to be must-roster. Isaiah Stewart, 28 minutes. Mason Plumlee, 20. 9 and 8 for Stewart. I think that Stewart is worth holding in 12-team leagues, so I think we're going to have a little bit more of this from him, getting more minutes than Mason, even if he doesn't start. While the Duke Wayne Ellington had 2 points in 13 minutes, and Joshy Jackson, 7 points in 23. But honestly, it was pretty bad from a Detroit perspective. If it wasn't for Grant and Bay, who shot unbelievably, this would have been real ugly. Corey Joseph had 6 assists in 19 minutes, but I think his little run of being a 12-team league option is done. For the Denver Nuggets, only 27 minutes there, 27, 8, and 11 with a steal and a block is excellent. Well, Aaron Gordon, I don't know how to peg this bloke. 9, well, actually, I would know how to peg him. That's not something I'm probably going to be doing, but I don't know how to fully judge his value. 9 points in 23 minutes, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, no steals, no blocks. Now, his steals and block numbers had been up in Denver, and I doubted the ability for that to continue. He was also shooting like 64%. I doubted the ability for that to continue, and the assists remained down, and that stayed the same. Now, the 23 minutes that he played here is largely due to the blowout. I still think, look, you can have him as a 12-team league guy, but I honestly do not think that he's must roster. He is a guy that you can have. You can drop him. He's going to be inconsistent, and that's just what's going to happen. He is not a high priority offensive option for this team. Porter had 25 and 7, and Will Barton 24, 6 and 4 with 2 steals. Pretty good game there for him. Well, PJ Dozier off the bench was also really good. 8 and 6 with 5 assists and 3 steals. I wouldn't count on that too much. The headmaster Jamal Murray was out, so Monty Morris started. He only played 23 minutes, while Facu Campazzo played 22, as Morris is working his way back from injury. No indication that Murray's injury is long-term or serious. It might have just been a situation where, hey, let's just get him a bit of a rest in here on a back-to-back against Detroit, and that worked out pretty well. So I wouldn't be rushing to add Morris. I don't think there's anything serious, but I don't know anymore. While Paul Millsap added 12 points in 19 minutes, and of course Millsap is a pretty clear 12-team league drop at this stage. All right, so let's go on to the next game. Pretty big win in the end for the Clippers here over the Blazers, 133-116, with no Yusuf Nurkic, and Terry Stotts is like, I'm not sure when he'll be back. Maybe that's next game. Maybe that's 2 weeks. I have no idea. That's obviously frustrating. So we're going back and adding Enes Kanter. 36 minutes for Kanter, 13 and 15 with 2 blocks, while CJ McCollum was great, 24 points, 6 assists, and 2 steals. Damian Lillard was not. 11 points on 14% shooting with 6 assists. Now, he struggled to begin this season next to CJ. CJ went out. He went bananas. CJ's back, and he's struggling again. And I am not saying that that's to do with CJ, because he has played with CJ plenty of times in the past. But that has been the pattern this year. 21st ranked player over the last 2 weeks, Lillard. Really struggling at this point. Norman Powell put up some big scoring numbers. 32 points, but 29% usage for Norman Powell while Lillard gets 21 and McCollum gets 20. That seems a suboptimal use of your offensive weapons. 32 points is great. Now, some of that is because he went to the line 15 times and hit 93% of them, but his shooting numbers are off in Portland versus where they were in Toronto. Only 29% from 3 in this game. He's still providing value, and the minutes are great, and the shot attempts are great, but I'm not sure it's the way to build a solid rotation. Derek Jones, basically out of the rotation now. He played garbage time. He played like 5 minutes before the end of the game. Had 12 minutes, 6 points. Nothing to see there. Nasir Little had 5 points in 12 minutes, while Mallow had 8 points. Carmelo Anthony still rostered in 56% of advanced leagues. For what reason, I have no idea, and he is a clear drop. Covington had 2 steals and a block with 15 and 9 in this one as well. On to the Clippers. They had the return of Patrick Beverley. He started, and that pushed Reggie Jackson to the bench. But Jackson was still really good. 26 minutes for Reggie, 23 points with 4 triples, a steal, and a block. But to be fair, this is better than Reggie played when Beverley was out. So we're not going and adding Reggie, but he is going to remain in the rotation. The guys who suffer are the Duck Lou Kennard, who's out, and Terrence Mann, who played under 10 minutes, and a lot of that was garbage time. Speaking of garbage, Rajon Rondo had 2 points in 15 minutes. He was 25% shooting. If he was to play more, maybe he's an assist and steals streamer, but that's literally it, and he has no business being on a 12 or 14 or a 16-team roster. While Boogie Cousins played his first game, he played the final 3 minutes of the game, and he played 4 minutes randomly in the second quarter. He had 7 and 4, but without Serge Ibaka, he plays just 8 minutes. I do not think there is a large enough role here for Cousins to have any value in 12 or 14 team leagues. He's on a 10-day contract. Maybe it's just while Ibaka's out. Not sure they're going to sign him long-term. I do not think that there is a 20-minute-a-night role for DeMarcus Cousins on this team. Zubats played 24 minutes, had 11 and 5. He was pretty good. Batum had 5 and 6, and he isn't a 12-team league guy. While it was a bit of a stinker from Marcus Morris, and he falls into that problem that if the shots don't go in, he doesn't do anything else. 5 and 4 in 24 minutes for Morris, who can be a 12-team league guy, but it's only really in very specific circumstances. I didn't even talk about the 2 big guys. The Beatle, Paul George, was great. 36 points, 6 triples, 5 assists, a steal, and a block, while Kawhi had 29, 12, and 7. Just ho-hum stuff from those blokes. Leonard is the 8th-ranked player this year. George is the 17th. They just keep doing what they do. Now, George has been a bit down, 78th ranked player over the last 2 weeks, but this is obviously a really, really nice comeback, and rewarded you if you bought low or you held on, which, of course, I did recommend you did hold on, because we know Paul George isn't that bad. For as much as you may want to hate him, he isn't as bad as he's shown over the last 2 weeks. All right, so let's move on now. Next game was a game that I don't know how the Bucks ended up losing this one. The Warriors win it 122-121. I honestly, I don't know how this happened, because the Bucks were up pretty big, and then the Warriors win it down the end. Wiggins with some weird shots, but a nice game-saving block. In the end, Drew Holiday, the Michelob Ultra Player of the Week, extra plug, they can pay me twice. He was at it again, 29 points, 61% from the field, 5 assists and 4 triples. If you do still have a trade deadline, this level of play from Drew has no way of continuing. He's like a top 3 player over the last 2 weeks. It's not going to be able to stick. There was no Giannis Antetokounmpo in this one, but Holiday's doing it with or without Giannis at the moment. Chrissy Middleton had 28 points with 7 assists. He was good. While the Big Ragu only had 6 points and some pretty poor shooting from DiVincenzo, but 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals. Continues to play well. And in place of Giannis, it was Punch Bob Shipbloke. Bobby Portis had 13 and 13 in 28 minutes. Now, we don't know the status of Giannis' knee, but he's missed a few games recently. So if you did add Portis and stream him today, I don't mind holding on to Bob and seeing where this goes. Jeff Teague had some pretty good shooting, especially late, 15 points in 16 minutes, but realistically, that's not something that we can rely on. While Brook Lopez, 9 points, 2 blocks. He's really more of a blocks and a threes specialist. He's not a points league guy, I don't think, and not a 10-team league player, but he has some value in 12-team as well. Paddy Connaughton was pretty rough, 3 points on 17% shooting with 8 rebounds. For the Warriors, Steph had 41, 6 and 4 with 5 triples. He was amazing in this game, while Bazemore also provided a good spark off the bench. 18 points in 26 minutes. Now, I don't think we need to get too excited about Kent Bazemore, the 260th ranked player this season, but it was good nonetheless. While Oubre and Wiggins, they always seem to trade good and bad games. 19 and 6 for Oubre with 4 triples and 2 steals, while Wiggins had 9 points on 27% shooting, but did have 3 blocks, including that key one late. Draymond fouled out. That's why he played only 29 minutes, 6, 5, and 8 for him, while Jim Wiseman played 25 minutes. Where are you now? I think he had 15 minutes in the first half, and of course, when it comes down to it and they need to win, he goes to the bench because defensively and offensively, he's just not there. 13 and 10 is still okay. He had a block. 46% shooting for a big man isn't going to cut it. And again, he remains outside the top 240 over the course of the season. I think he's more of a 14-team league guy versus a 12-team league guy, maybe even a 16-team league guy. And when the Warriors are scrounging for wins, he is going to get limited. And we saw that here in this one. And 13-10 is not a bad game, but there are still these downsides. He didn't hit a 3, the assists are non-existent. He only blocked 1 shot, and then poor field goal percentage, and he didn't get to the line. There's nothing particularly exciting to me there. Damian Lee had 2 points in 18 minutes, while Jordy Poole, he was pretty good in this one, Poole, 10 points and 6 assists, but that's only a deeper league type scenario. Let's move on now to have a look at the top adds and drops. Malachi Flynn, a whopping 37% increase in the roster percentage for him, in large part due to the 5-game week and the absence of Van Vliet and Lowry. He's worth holding on to. Van Vliet and Lowry, that's the right names. Let's worth holding on to see what happens the rest of this week. James Johnson up 27%. I really can't see that sticking with Zion back. We already saw the impact of that today, and then Ingram comes back and it's over. I think he's more of a... I think you're fine to move on from him in 12s. Grayson Allen up 16%. It was a turd from him today, but I would still hold. Reggie Bullock, well, he is putting up 12-team value. It's more just as a specialist if you don't want a Duncan Robinson or a Bojan Bogdanovic or a Davis Bertans. Yeah, Bullock's in that group of hitting threes. While RJ Hampton up 12%, I reckon people will be dropping him, especially with Cole Anthony and Michael Carter-Williams both upgraded to questionable for tomorrow. In terms of drops, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's going to be out minimum 2 weeks. I'd expect longer with that high ankle sprain. 23% down, drop him. Malik Beasley down 20%. We won't see him again this season. DeAnthony Melton down 10%. Fine, drop him. Isaiah Roby still out with concussion. Absolutely drop him, but be keen to add him back when he returns. And Alec Burks down 8%. For as much as I like Burks, the minutes are too inconsistent, the production is too inconsistent, and he's just a deeper league guy at this point. The top 10 players in under 50% of leagues. Jeremy Lamb with the 6 steals was great today. Don't buy into it. Reggie Jackson was also great. Don't buy into it. Marc Gasol was also great. Guess what?
Oh, hi, Mark.
Don't buy into it. Desmond Bane had some threes, had some steals. I thought he looked good, but again, these are all injury-related scenarios that aren't going to be replicable, I don't think, and Kent Bazemore had a bit of a game out of the box. For the Warriors, at number 6, Horton Tucker did well, but in blowouts, he tends to get more production. Goga, now he is an interesting short-term ad for sure. Pat Williams with his 4 steals, that's more 14-teamers. Markieff Morris had some 12-team league value, and PJ Dozier also did really well off the bench for the Nuggets, but that is just a very deep league type scenario. Let's move in now, talk some DFS for Wednesday across the NBA. All right, so we've got 9 games on Wednesday. First one is the Wolves and the Pacers. D'Angelo Russell is listed probable, so that means he should be okay to play, but how they use him and Rick Rubio is still a pretty big question mark there. Of course, Malik Beasley is out. Well, for Indiana, you have to assume that Miles Turner won't play after spraining his ankle pretty bad. On Tuesday, Domantas Sabonis, the talk from the broadcasters was that he was behind Brogdon in terms of his recovery time, so that's 20 hours before the start of this game, so I have to assume he doesn't play. So we're going to get maybe an opportunity for Goga Bitadze to start, some more minutes for Jakar Sampson in there. And then Malcolm Brogdon hasn't played the last couple, so there's a chance he doesn't play. So Aaron Holiday, Edmund Sumner, Jeremy Lamb, Karis LeVert, all those guys get boosts in that scenario. Washington and Orlando, Bradley Beal, Rui Hachimura, and Robin Lopez are all questionable. Bertans would start in place of Rui. Scott Brooks would do something stupid and start Hal Neto or Ish Smith probably in place of Brad Beal, while at center you'd have to get Alex Len getting more minutes, but there's obviously big question marks there. While for the Magic, both Cole Anthony and Michael Carter-Williams are listed questionable, and Ken Birch is questionable. Should be absolutely no way that Birch replaces Wendell Carter. There's no way that's going to happen, but RJ Hampton started last game at point guard. Will they go to Carter-Williams? Will they put Anthony straight back in there? There are a lot of question marks with Steve Clifford's rotation there. The Pelicans and the Nets, the next one. The Pelicans, Zion returned on Tuesday, but we don't know whether Brandon Ingram will play. We don't know whether Kyra Lewis will play. I would doubt that Kyra plays in this one, and that will give Isaiah Thomas another opportunity to get some minutes. Najee Marshall, James Johnson, they're in the rotation, but how much they're in the rotation, if Ingram plays, is up in the air. Well, Jackson Hayes did hurt his leg towards the end of that game and didn't return, so maybe it's back to Billy Hernan-Gomez as the backup center. The Knicks and the Celtics. New York pretty clear in terms of injuries outside of Mitchie Robinson, while for Boston, Kemba Walker will rest in this one. So we'll probably get someone like Shemi Ojeleye starting and pushing everyone else down a position. We could also have Tristan Thompson returning, although I don't think that he will start over Rob Williams. But Brad Stevens has made plenty of mistakes this season, so just chalk that one up to another one if it does happen. The Mavericks and the Rockets, Kristaps Porzingis, Trey Burke, and Maxi Kleber are all questionable. Of course, if Porzingis is out, or even if Kleber is out, look for Nicolo Melli to step into that starting role. While for Houston, John Wall is questionable. If he is out, we get that bump for Kevin Porter, we get that bump for Avery Bradley, we get that bump for Sterling Brown as well. I imagine Kelly Olynyk starts because Daniel House is out. Memphis and Atlanta back-to-back for the Grizzlies and for the Hawks. Ja Morant hurt his back /hip type area towards the end of the game, so his status is clearly up in the air. We also don't know about DeAnthony Melton or Brandon Clark or Justice Winslow. It could be a big role for someone like Tyus Jones stepping up there, with John Concha having to get some backup minutes because so many of the point guards could actually be out in this one. While for the Hawks, Johnny Collins and DeAndre Hunter will be out. We don't know about Chris Dunn if he's back yet. I don't imagine so, but those other two guys will be out. Charlotte and OKC, no Hayward, no Ball for Charlotte, while no Baisley, no Gilgeous-Alexander, no Dort, no Roby, no Horford for OKC. Just the usual suspects being absent there. Then they got the Spurs and the Nuggets back-to-back for Denver. The headmaster, Jamal Murray, did not play on Tuesday. Monty Morris started in his place, so we want to watch that one. While for San Antonio, DeJounte Murray, who missed last game with foot soreness, he is listed as questionable. Lonnie Walker and Keita Bates-Diop are both listed as out. The last game is the Suns and the Jazz. Abdul Nadir is out for Phoenix. Everyone else pretty much good to go. Frank Kaminsky off the injury report after missing the last few games. Now, if we look at some FanDuel values, you got to start with Goga Badadze at 3,900. Got to love that value with Sabonis and Turner both most likely not playing. Svi Mykhailiuk, Ty Jerome, PJ Washington Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, Brad Beal if he plays. I don't mind him at 8,300. Jaylen Brown, maybe Christian Wood. He's come down in salary. Terry Rozier, Trae Young, Pokusevski, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, Nikola Jokic. Wendell Carter's up to 73, so I'm not sure about that one. DeMar DeRozan looks all right. Derek White under 6,000 perhaps. Kelly Olynyk, maybe. I wouldn't want to use Moses Brown. Maybe Teo Maledon. And Russ Westbrook at 11,000 looks pretty good to me as well. Guys, that'll do it for me today. Don't forget to follow this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Hit the thumbs up on your way out. Don't let the door hit you in their ass, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.